So sometimes when we're evaluating numerical expressions, we have to deal with fractions. I know that for some of you, fractions are not your friends. That's okay. You might want to take a little time and remind yourself of different operations with fractions. But in this video, I'm just going to talk about multiplying fractions and how we can sometimes simplify a fraction before we multiply and why that works. So let's take a look at the two expressions that I have on the screen here. First thing I want to say is that we need to remember that multiplication is what we call a commutative operation. What does that mean? That means that we can multiply 4 times 2 and get 8. We can also multiply 2 times 4 and get 8. So we can multiply numbers together, and we can do it in any order. The order does not matter when we're multiplying. Not true of all operations, but definitely multiplication. So when we're multiplying two fractions, for example, 8 57ths and 57 61sts, we could just multiply 8 times 57, and we could multiply 57 times 61, and we would get two really big numbers, and then we would have to simplify them. We could do that, absolutely, and you're welcome to do that. But I'm going to suggest that if we move these numbers around a little bit, it'll make it more simple for us to simplify before we even multiply. So remembering that we can multiply 8 times 57, or we can multiply 57 times 8, and we can multiply 57 times 61 here. I like to put little lines on my 7s just to remind me that they're 7s, but you can do whatever you want. But what I notice here is that now that I've moved these numbers around, I get an interesting fraction here, 57 over 57. Again, I want to remind you that when we write a number, a fraction, with the same number in the numerator and in the denominator, we get what we call a one pair. So if the number in the numerator is the same as the number in the denominator of a fraction, that's a 1. That's just 1. So 57 in the numerator and 57 in the denominator is the same as saying 1 times 8 over 61. So some people say cancel out. I don't like to use the word cancel out, but you can use that if you want. I like to say we're making a 1. And because we're making a 1 times anything is itself. And so we can just simplify this to 8 over 61. Much simpler than doing all net multiplication and then trying to simplify, right? So let's take a look at another example. This time, I don't see the same number on the top and the bottom, but I can still simplify, and I'll show you how. So I'm again gonna switch the numbers on the top and change it to 1 times 21 and 50 times 35. And I do that because I know that 21 and 35 both have a factor that is 7. So they're both divided equally by 7. So I can rewrite this top expression as, instead of 21, I'm going to write 3 times 7. And on the bottom, instead of 35, I'm going to write 5 5 times 7. Now look at what I have again. I have that one pair. Look at that. So I made myself a 1. So I can again rewrite this as 1 times 3 over 50 times 5 times 1. And I can kind of get rid of that 1 or ignore that 1 because anything times 1 is itself. So 1 times 3 is 3, and 50 times 5 is 250. So that is my final answer. And again, it's much simpler than multiplying 50 times 35 and then trying to figure out what's a good number to divide that by. Okay, so this is just a little shortcut for evaluating expressions with fractions.